I think that's the point, right? They'll make it interesting.
And we are live. Hi, everyone. Welcome to today's Earth Day Live, the youth led cleanup movement. I'm your host, Michael Carpedian, and today we are joined by two young youth cleanup leaders. At earthday.org, I run the Great Global Cleanup, and our goal is to rid the environment of waste and plastic pollution for good. And today we are joined by two leaders. I'm really excited to introduce them to you. So, first, we're joined by Hratcha Sahakian out of Armenia. He is the founder of Makor NGO, an environmental movement that in just 1 year of existence has activated in over 100 countries and done over 200 cleanups. And I'm also joined by Felix Craner, who is the founder of Planet Matters, the online cleanup movement that has over 3 million followers on TikTok. Very excited to speak with both of you. And Harach, let's start with you. How old are you, Harach?
Firstly, hi everybody. I'm super excited to be here. I'm 19. I'm still a high schooler.
Awesome. And Harach, can you tell us a little bit about Makor and the work that you do there?
Absolutely. So we started Makor about a year ago. I think the official date is May of 2023. And yeah, we started it with the idea of kind of solving the issue of pollution in Armenia. Because we had some amazing friends from Europe coming to Armenia, and for the first time, we saw the country from the perspective of guests, and we realized that we actually have lots of pollution around the city and around the country, and we decided that we need to do something about it. So, with that vision and idea of solving the pollution from its core, we started the Malkur movement. The main idea of the movement is kind of it's the direct action and education. So like also like we're solving the issue from this core, but also doing some direct actions like cleanups, recycling, upcycling stations. So yeah, that's about Malkut. And throughout this year, we've achieved a great success because we have developed in each region of Armenia and even internationally. And we, yeah, as Michael said, we've done about 300 cleanups and united about 100 countries. So yeah.
Now, Harach, I'm going to dive into a little bit more of your story because I feel like you're underselling yourself in the amount of work that you've done in just 1 year. And I didn't realize that you started in May. So it's been less than a year and you've already had such a huge impact. But first, let me jump over to Felix. And Felix, how old are you?
I'm 22, turning 23 next week.
Wow. So we have a lot of Gen Zers in this chat. I'm also 23 as well. And before we jump into that, I do want to remind anyone who's watching, throw in the comments where you're from. We are a global movement. We are activated in over 192 countries. Sorry, Hadach, I know you said 100 countries. I'm going to plug Earth Day real quick. And, say where you're from. And if you have any questions, feel free to answer. We'll have a Q&A session at the end of this as well. So Felix, I know there was a moment in your life that you realized you needed to do something. So can you tell us a little bit about Planet Matters and like what was that moment that you realized that you needed to get active?
Sure. So thank you as well, Michael. We've talked quite a lot recently, but really looking forward to talking to you. Basically, Planet Matters is a worldwide social media plastic cleanup movement, which means that we're basically filming videos of ourselves cleaning up beaches and shores and in general the nature. And we want to motivate viewers mainly on TikTok and on Instagram who see our cleanup videos, which are, by the way, made in quite a, let's say, entertaining manner, to go out themselves and do something in the fight against plastic pollution. And how it all started for me is that I've been working on creating social media pages and creating reach on social media since the, I'd say, tender age of 16. And ever since then, every day I had my focus on how can I go viral and get views on social media without actually showing my face, which means by posting videos about funny things, facts about stuff. I'm sure some of you have heard of memes. It's just funny videos on the internet that other people make, and you basically create a page on that and try to reach as many people and as many followers as you can. And this turned out quite successfully for me. So by the time I was about 19, I had about 2 million, uh, mostly German speaking people following my accounts on Instagram. But I always felt like there was something missing for me. Like, posting ads about random funny videos is quite fun, and it makes some, I'd say, quite good money. But the problem is it isn't really meaningful. And then I thought to myself, how can I make the skill and the passion I have for creating reach and like reaching a lot of people on social media with certain types of topics, to actually do something useful? And then I came up with the idea of Planet Matters, which is um, posting people all over the world that clean up plastic waste. So, for example, also you guys in Armenia or people in the US or wherever you are, and really trying to reach as many people with that. That's kind of the idea of it. And yeah, as you said, right now we have over 3 million followers, and our videos, which aren't really our videos, like they're videos from the community, but also some of them I filmed, have reached a total of over 200 million people in the past 2 years. So I started, I think it was February 2022.
Wow, Felix, actually, I want to hammer in because you said something really interesting. So you started, doing social media stuff at 16, but your focus wasn't on the environment at all, correct?
Yes, correct.
And so you developed this skill of, clearly you're very talented at, being able to garner a huge amount of following on these platforms, and then you decided to use that skill for good.
Exactly. That's the that's the that's the key thing to it, because for me, at first, like, since I was a young child, I always knew I wanted to do something to help the planet, and I was always very passionate in general about environmentalism. I wouldn't say I was the most passionate, but I was passionate, and I thought, like, my plan was, hey, what can I do? Really, I'm only, let's say, 16 years old or 19 years old. I can do my meme pages, maybe make a little bit of money. But once I'm older, once I'm 40, when I have a lot of money, I'll buy some ships, and then I'll maybe do something like clean up the ocean bit by bit, hire some people, the same like the ocean cleanup is doing, or some other companies. But I thought to myself, why wait until I'm 40 and old and like wasted 20 years of my life trying to build something that doesn't really have an impact? And why not start right now? And I think that's kind of the key message that the Planet Matters movement also tries to bring across, is that everyone has their field that they're good at. And no matter how old you are, you can already start now doing something impactful. Like, for example, when you're good with social media, think of a way to use social media to actually have an impact and maybe even make a living out of it.
Wow. Yeah, I think you really hit it on the head, as being able to use your skills that are unique to you to build something incredible. And I love what you said about not waiting until you're 40, 50, 60 years old to actually do something, and to do something now. There's a lot of people who are in this movement that do wait that long. And I think it shows that at any point, you can tie your skills into this and build something amazing at it. Now, Hadach, I want to jump back to you because I know Makor isn't your first venture, and I know you have that entrepreneurial bone in your body. Can you tell us a little bit about your background? And definitely want to hear, why you decided to go down the environmental path.
I mean, when it comes to environment, I, as Felix, have always been very passionate about it. I really cared about it. I remember as a kid, I was watching news on the TV, seeing that Australia is in fire, Spain is in fire, and I did have that eco anxiety, that the term that Michael brought to me. But yeah, it was since childhood. But about when it comes to my venture, I think it started with a Future Leaders Exchange program. When I went to an exchange year, it was fully funded by the US government, and it was really life changing. The first thing that was first life changing is that the program really empowered me, because it has a 2.5% acceptance rate. I decided that I'm the chosen one, and that really empowered me, and I realized that there's actually so much that I can do. And with that, in the US, I started like doing lots of different projects and programs, both for environment and for other social causes. For example, another project, I would say, organization that exists, is called Rise for the World. And it kind of provides youngsters, there's a selection process, and you're supposed to build up a project to help your community. And eventually they choose some finalists, and the finalists get lots of benefits. And I was the part of the Rise project, and I became a finalist. And my project was about social justice. It was not about environment at first. And that was my first experience of actually like doing kind of life changing and community changing project. Um, and after that, when I returned from the US, I again started, going to different programs. I think the main one that like I continued with was the European Youth Parliament, when I was going to lots of European cities, and I was chairing. It was kind of a mock-up of the actual European Parliament, and I was chairing the conferences. And I would always choose committees on environmental topics and tackle the environmental issues of Europe and globally, and lead my teams of delegates to develop resolutions to the environmental issues of Europe. And then I realized that, with my background of being able to build the projects, being able to kind of, lead teams, and also being very aware about the environment and also anxious about it, I realized that this is Makur is something that I really want to do, and I got super passionate about it. But I also want to mention that I didn't start Makur on my own. I started it with my two best friends. That we started it together. They were with me from the very beginning, so I definitely also want to give their credits to them. And yeah, that's the like my main background of starting the Makura movement.
Awesome. And then I kind of want to dive in a little bit more on, your work, starting with social justice. What did it feel like switching? Like, did you always want to go into like nonprofits, NGOs, and working, for the benefit of society? I guess is a good way to say it. Or was that something new to you? And what was that experience like? What did you really enjoy it? And what was that experience like for you?
I think as a kid, all those programs like the Future Exchange, the Future Leaders Exchange program, and all the other programs that I was a part of, they kind of set these things like caring about people, caring about communities and the planet. They kind of set that things in me as a child, and then I started doing all those projects. But in the beginning, I had lots of passions, both like social justice and environment, and lots of other stuff. And yeah, I did start with social justice. I created the platform where people, could address the social issues in Armenia, not being afraid of cyberbullying and any other stuff that were going on in the Armenian internet at the time. Um, but after that, I came back to Armenia in summer, and I started watching the news again, and I started seeing again the different countries being in fire in summer, and I was getting super anxious every time. Um, and I just started caring about environment more and more, and then I realized that this is something I really want to do in future, kind of devoting myself to solving the environmental issues. And yeah, here I am.
Awesome. And you keep bringing up the anxiety. I know we were, the eco anxiety. We were laughing about it backstage because you had never heard that term. Felix, have you heard the term eco anxiety?
Yes, I have.
Awesome. Yeah. It's something growing up in the United States I've always known about. And I remember I was taking a class while I was studying sustainability at the University of Florida. And we had a guest lecturer come in, and he was another professor. And he spent that entire hour just showing us all the graphs of like, the hockey stick graphs where they go like, this is the CO2 in the environment. And then the last 10 years, just hockey stick graphs like that. And I remember leaving that class, quite frankly, terrified of, I was like, well, the world's going to end and there's nothing we can do about it. Because that was pretty much, what we were told. And then luckily, started working in the environment and running the Great Global Cleanup. And it's like doing that action has like I'm not afraid anymore. I know we are going to tackle this, at least from my perspective. So Felix, let me ask you, and something I want to know is, I know you had a moment where you realized, I believe it was while scuba diving, that you realized you needed to do something about this. Did you feel that anxiety? Did you feel that fear about the future? And what was that like?
For sure, for sure. So, as you mentioned, I think in general, it's very common among especially young people our age, or even younger, or maybe even a bit older. As Harachi also mentioned earlier, we're watching the news and we're seeing those graphs and everyone telling us the world's gonna end. That sometimes makes you feel like there's really not much you can do anymore, and what's the point anyways, because the graphs are dying and like the fires are burning. So I think what's very important to remember in this aspect is that yes, it is looking like a terrible situation, but stress and like anxiety usually comes from a point of no action. Like when you see something, when you see something's wrong and you do nothing about it, and that's what makes you feel like sick inside and anxious. So what I've noticed for myself, as soon as I took this first step of, hey, I want to do something, and even if it's just as little as starting a social media page or going on cleanups, this already makes you feel like you're more in control of the situation because you're actually working towards the goal. And even if, let's say, hypothetically, the world was going to end, you were at least on the side of trying to solve the problem. And what I like to say often to this type of fear is that even if, let's say, there's no turning back and the world's going to like end anyways, if we work harder at this, at least it'll end a day or two later, and we'll have like another day or two where great things happen. Humanity thrives, So I think in general, environmentalism is a topic when you start working on it that like ties in all the other factors of helping. Um, as mentioned earlier, for example, when you work at social work or when you work in healthcare, all these issues in the end come together when looking at environmentalism, because without the environment, nothing can really exist. So, like, when you help the environment, at the same time, you also help social injustice, you help the poor children all over the world and all the other problems we're actually facing. So, I think that's why, like, starting a first step and doing at least something for the environment, just whatever comes to your mind, already helps so much with this eco anxiety.
I appreciate that. I'm seeing in the chat that a lot of people, have dealt with anxiety for a long time. And I got a question for you again, Felix. With your community, and I've seen, the videos that you post, most of them are Gen Z and quite younger. In your conversations with the people in your community, do they experience that eco anxiety, or do you feel like they're more hopeful than some people might expect?
Um, I'd say definitely, of course, they feel it as everyone else is feeling it, but it's the way of already being part of some type of solution and actually feeling a community feeling in looking at the positive ways of actually being able to make a difference, that really helps them cope with this better than I think many others our age. And what usually happens, I think, when you dive too much into this, the world's gonna end and all those animals are dying, is that it gets to the point where it's so terrible where you'd rather just look away, ignore the problem as a whole and say, yeah, it's terrible, but what should I do about it? And that's when also not taking action starts, or taking action stops, because people think, well, it will end anyway. So what the message of Planet Matters is that we're basically having fun. We're not looking at the world like it's gonna end, or like we're going to the beach and just pointing fingers at everyone who did wrong, but we're just looking one day at a time, what can I do from my skin to make things better? and how can I inspire people or motivate them and tell them, hey, what we're doing right now on our TikTok page when we're posting a video of, I don't know, some friends on the beach cleaning up, looks fun, and it actually is fun. So why not try out doing something for the environment yourself, and you'll see how rewarding it feels for yourself, how fun it is, and like I'd say in the future potentially also how big the business opportunities in this field are going to get, because this is like, I'd say, the most important issue the world is experiencing, and like that's also the reason why there will be a lot of attention and money flowing into this whole field of environmentalism as a whole.
Felix, you said quite a lot of things I want to touch on because yeah, you nailed it right on the head. I think the community aspect of doing cleanups or just environmental work in general is really huge, right? It's like if you're just focused on all the news articles, and trust me, we read all the news articles of what's going on, you can get stuck in a very, very bad spot of feeling very isolated and not being able to do anything with the problem. But I would say the great thing about what the three of us do and what everyone in this kind of sphere does is that, you know, I see what Hadach is doing. I see what Felix is doing. I see what all of our partners are doing. And it's like, we're doing this together, right? And I know who the people are that are fighting it. And I know who the people are who aren't doing anything and just complaining about it. And I have way more confidence in the people who are actually making the impacts that I don't feel that anxiety anymore. I know we're going to do it. Hasn't happened yet. Me personally, I just know we're going to do it, which is awesome. Yeah, I think that community aspect is huge. Hadach, I kind of want to swing it back to you. You know, being from Armenia, and that side of the world, with a country that has such a rich and historic culture. What is the environmental movement like in Armenia, and you know, is environmentalism taking off there?
I would say it would probably be quite different from the Western world. People are not there's less eco anxiety in Armenia it exists in the Western world because of the differences in media and news. But when it comes to everything else, it's kind of pretty similar because the Armenian government slowly started caring about the environment more, seeing the impact of climate change on the economic patterns. Um, yeah, I wouldn't say it is right now much different from the Western world. I would just say that people are definitely less aware of the environmental issues and care less about it, which is actually even better for me because every time when you do projects somewhere, go out to a different village or a town, and you organize a seminar or a big cleanup and see people changing their perception of environment, it is always so inspiring and so fun. Because when it comes to eco anxiety, as Felix mentioned, when you do nothing about it, you keep having it. But when you start, taking action over things that you can, you start getting inspired because you are the one that creates the good news. And it's always so motivating to see that.
Awesome. And you know, I'm curious. In Armenia, at least, is it more for the cleanups? Is it more the community aspect that gets people out there instead of the environmentalism, and then eventually do they switch over to um, being part of the environmental movement? Like, is it that community aspect that people like about the cleanups?
I think it is both. It is equally both. Honestly, in Armenia, you just need to try a little harder and promote the things better in a more fun way, so people are more interested to join the cleanups and all the events that environmental organizations are organizing. But it is just both.
Yeah. And you know, I will say the great thing about cleanups, and Felix, I wonder if you've noticed this as well. At least in the United States, conversations around environmentalism and climate change, and you know, all this work that we do is very divisive, unfortunately. But the one thing that's great about cleanups is that they really, they really bridge that divide. You know, everyone can go outside and see a river or a lake that has like a ton of trash and plastic in it, and just know that that's bad and that's not the way it's supposed to be. And so it
Exactly.
doesn't matter about climate change. It doesn't matter about all these other topics that, of course, are very important, but it gets anyone, your regular people who don't want to participate in the climate movement, they want to go out and take care of their community. Have you noticed that, Felix?
Yes, and I think that's a very, very important point you made here, because, as you said, I've never really heard many people argue against cleaning up nature. Like, even the biggest critics of, I'd say, environmentalism in general will agree that when a beach is dirty and you clean it up, that's generally a good thing. And what's beautiful about doing beach cleanups in general is not only that it's so rewarding to be out there, in nature, and actually be with your friends, have a fun time. First of all, for everyone that has already done a cleanup, you can probably relate. It always feels a bit like a treasure hunt. So you're out there on the beach, and you never really know what you're going to find, how much you're going to find in the end of the day. And there's really fun things that you sometimes get across, things that we also show on our TikTok page. um, I don't know what we found. We found like a computer keyboard. I found some coins cleaning up. We found some other crazy stuff, yoga mats, shoes. And it's always fun because every item that you find on the beach or on the shore or somewhere in nature has this certain type of story behind it. And you're like, how did this get there? But whatever, I'll clean it up. And it's really I've never really heard of anyone who's gone on a cleanup yet with me, correct me if I'm wrong, who said in the end of the day, ooh, yeah, the cleanup, it was all right, but I don't know, I'll probably never do it again. Because what actually happens is that not only do you take a walk in nature that you would take anyways and like feel like a treasure hunt because you're actually picking something up and it actually feels productive, but it's also this feeling of um, you've done something good and you've made a bit of a difference. And I think people in general, they really want to feel like they're on the good side and that they are having some kind of difference. And beach cleanups is a beautiful way to get people who are maybe not as passionate about the environment at first to get involved with caring about the environment. And crazy what things develop out of this. I've went on cleanups with people, and after that they had this idea themselves how they can use their skill to do something for the environment. For example, I had a person, I think it was about 3 months ago, and we were in Bali and doing a cleanup, and he was just a regular tourist. He also joined our cleanup, um, which, by the way, shout out to Earth Day for having this cleanup map where everyone can join when a cleanup gets announced. And he had this normal job. He was like a app developer and doing some software thing. And after the cleanup, he told me, "Hey Felix, I've never really done anything for the environment yet, but now I got an idea how to use my software thing also to do something sustainable with my job." And I think that's what it's all about, is to connect people, do something fun and good together, and then come up with ideas and, like, in general, just be around like-minded people. That's the beautiful thing about cleanups.
Yeah, Felix, I have to thank you for that plug. Yes, shameless plug. Go to earthday.org/cleanup, and right there you'll find our global cleanup map with cleanups all over the world. If you have a cleanup, throw it on the map. Felix's cleanups on the map. Hadach's cleanups are on the map.
Yes.
Yeah, so make sure to go check that out. Thank you for that plug. I do want to, add on to what you said about how much fun it is to do a cleanup. Something I learned early on starting to do this work, that if you're not having fun, you're doing it wrong. And combining it with that, previous eco anxiety, it's like it doesn't exist when you're out with your friends and just having a good time. And speaking of friends, Hadach, you really have grown your movement with your friends, and I've met a few of them, and I'm excited to hopefully meet more in the future. But I mean, your movement has really grown so quickly in the past year. What is that like, and what is it like doing it with your friends?
We actually never expected that our first video would go so viral that lots of people would like to join us. But yeah, my crew started it was just three of us friends joining us together and just kind of firstly planning everything, our vision, what we want to do, and what we want to achieve at the end. But actually, our first cleanup, it was just a tiny one. We were like six, seven people. We went to just a random place in Yerevan and we started cleaning up. And by the way, this that was my very first cleanup experience. The Malkuri cleanup was my very first cleanup experience. Previously, I would have like academic experience of like, writing solutions to different environmental issues, but this was my first like actual experience of having cleanups. And it actually was so fun and so bonding. And after that, we again started posting different videos, and people just started getting, um, you know, excited about the movement, and people just started texting us how they can join, what they can do for us, um, and that started growing very, very quickly. Within I think just a month, we already got teams like set teams in each region of Armenia, which was quite unexpected for us. We didn't expect that. And after that, it just like kept growing both in Armenia and internationally. We really value education. So, like, in addition to cleanups, we also do lots of educational seminars. We really find that it is really important to solve the issue of pollution from its core, which means we need to teach people who pollute the environment that they should not do that, which is a huge issue in Armenia, because it is not only the businesses, it is also like the people that just, throw the litter on the ground. So yeah, we really value education as well. That's why we also have educational clubs, both in Armenia and lots of places internationally. For American guests that are watching us, you guys would probably know the University of Pennsylvania since it's a Ivy League school. One of our co-founders who studies there, and will even have a club in the UPenn. So yeah, that's how we do it with Makor. Um, yeah.
Awesome. And I think the theme of this Earth Day Live is really, you guys are the youth, and you guys are really stepping up to tackle these issues. Hidachi made a good point about kind of the norm in Armenia in some places is just littering and dealing with waste that way. And with your global experience, being in the U.S. and being in all these other countries, like, what do you say to this generation, and what would you say to the previous generation? What's your advice to them?
In Armenia or globally?
Both. Both.
Both. I don't know, caring more about the environment, I think, because honestly, I really know that everybody loves nature, everybody loves spending time in nature, but if people just keep just loving the nature but doing nothing about keeping it safe for us and keeping it protected for the future generations that we create, there's going to be our children or the children of our children that are not going to be able to, enjoy the nature that we have right now. So I would just suggest to for everybody to take more care about the environment and teach their children and future generations to not litter around and I don't know, build sustainable economies and businesses, I guess.
That's awesome. I think Felix also made a good point that this kind of movement is growing so much that getting involved in building a business around it, or building a livelihood around living sustainably, is not only an option, it's kind of the way to go. And it's getting to the point where it's not really possible to build a successful business not rooted in these principles. And these principles just make sense, and they also help businesses intrinsically. So, we're kind of getting to the end here, but I feel like I could talk forever with you guys. But couple of questions for you guys as we close up, and then we're going to go into Q&A. So I got a couple questions for you, and then we're going to go to Q&A because we got a bunch of questions in the comments. First, Felix, I'm going to start with you. I got two questions for you. One, are you hopeful for the future? And two, tell us what you're doing in April.
Okay, one, I'm very hopeful for the future. I think that this movement, and in general people thinking like us, or people thinking like in the chat, because there's a reason we're all there today. Everyone listening is already aware of this movement and aware of that everyone can make a difference, and everyone talking here as well of course, congratulations really to both of you here in the room with me today. You're both doing great things, and I'm sure we're very young. We'll do a lot of great things after the call. And second thing, what I'm doing in April is I started this movement as a worldwide movement, and I'll get to how I started it and the nitty gritties of going viral on TikTok later in the Q&A, because I already saw some of you guys' questions and I'll get to them gladly. Is that I right now want to also make a thing that's rooted in my home country, which is Austria, and for the days of the 15th to the 30th of April. We'll be going around Austria. There's 9 different small states in Austria, and we'll clean up each of the state with a different school and film entertaining TikToks of that. And we'll also have some companies involved that will sponsor the whole road trip, that will also get mentioned on our social media page. That's part of our income. And yeah, it'll be really a fun time, and it'll be about really taking students from schools to actually do cleanups in a country like Austria that isn't as crazy polluted as, let's say, Indonesia or probably Armenia, but still. And yeah, filming fun TikToks and just getting the awareness out also in the home country I'm based in, because it's funny that even though I am from country and from Austria, and I'm working from Austria, there's no real connection of my whole movement to Austria as of now. So that should change.
I'm excited to hear that. I think that's really funny that you've built this global community, and then it's right at home as where one of your blind spots are. So I'm stoked that you are going out to all these schools. I think that's awesome. Harach, 2 questions. 1, are you hopeful for the future? And 2, what are you doing in April? And feel free to give us a shameless plug. Go for it.
I'm not hopeful. I'm certain that we're going to have a very bright future. Definitely free of pollution and climate change, hopefully. And about April, yeah, we're working with Earth Day Oregon. We're organizing a super big environmental event here in Armenia. It's going to be in the capital city of Yerevan. We're going to involve several hundred people to do mass cleanup here in Yerevan, and we will be involving lots of news agencies, the municipality and governments and ministries of Armenia. And afterwards, we will be going to the American University of Armenia, and there we will we will do a conference and a panel discussion with lots of guest speakers, including Makur, other environmental organizations here in Armenia, and of course the Earth Day org that we're making this project with.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys for joining me. We had a bunch of questions in the chat, and first I want to throw up, or I'll ask Tim, our wonderful director in the background, can you throw up Hannah's question for Felix? Hey, Felix, quick question. How could I build a social media following around environmentalism?
Thank you for the question. I think what differentiates how I built my following around environmentalism to approaches of many other companies that maybe haven't been as successful on the social media part is that I really look at, for example, posting TikToks about the environment the same as I look at posting TikToks about some funny meme or about some whatever it really is, because on social media what's very important is that you get the viewers to watch your, let's focus on TikTok from the start to the end. So as long as the watch time of your video, which is on TikTok right around 30 seconds, is very high, that's when you'll go viral, and that's when you'll reach a lot of people. And my thing when I start thinking about a video that I will post is always, how could I, in my shoes, if I were the viewer, watch the video till the end? And what that really means is that you need a strong hook. So like the first 3 to 5 seconds of your video need to be very catching, even though it's a topic like environmentalism that's maybe also very often negative, you'll maybe find something where people can relate and where people feel like, wow, this looks so entertaining, I want to watch it till the end. So what we really don't do is show like something like a dead turtle or something terrible where people in the start already say, wow, this looks so bad, I don't want to see it at all. But we rather try to show something that people can really relate to. If you look at our TikTok page, it's a lot about five funny things at the I found at the beach, and the fifth one you won't believe, or uh, really random stuff. So it's basically about catching the viewer's attention at the start and really finding a way to have them on board all the way until the end. And the better you do that, the more likely you are going to succeed and go viral on social media in general. And then the next thing, of course, if is you have to have your ground message. So for us, it's, for example, that positive approach to environmentalism, and that we're always showing people how fun it is. So that will also differentiate yourself, and like that's the way people will connect to yourself, and that's the way you'll actually build a community, when people can really connect to your core message. I hope that was helpful.
Yeah,
Otherwise, you can also always write me on the Instagram of Planet Matters, preferably. I'd love to help.
awesome. And Hadachi, I hope you were taking notes because we're going to be filming stuff in Armenia and sending it straight to Felix. I do want to throw another question up from Basiliki. How do you see cleanups helping in plastic pollution? So I'll take this one. With the way, cleanups are a phenomenal way of getting people active. And I think we've, covered it very heavily here that, cleanups are really that gateway into the environmental movement. And I think that's really the power of cleanups. Is one, you're removing trash from the environment, but you're also getting people to see the issue for what it is. And at least in the United States, and likely elsewhere in the world, you often ignore, the trash and plastic that you see in your day-to-day life. And Hadachi, Felix, was that kind of the same for you guys when you first started doing or before you started doing cleanups, you just like ignored the plastic that was out there?
Kind of, yeah. I mean, not me, but lots of people did.
Yeah, definitely. I always ignored it until I started doing cleanups, and I realized how huge of an issue it is. And I think it's creating that movement momentum to get people to create, upstream and downstream change through cleanups. Thank you for that question. And then we got another question here. How do you make people care about the environment and climate when there's much worse things going on around the world? Hadachi, do you want to take this one?
Sure, I can. I mean, I would say that, the term much worse things, it's really individual, and it really depends on different perceptions and the communities that you're in. But honestly, firstly, like when it comes to Makur, a big thing that is important that, I think probably played a huge role in making Makur pretty popular in Armenia is the sense of community. And I would again like emphasize the factor of cleanups. You definitely have so much fun while doing it because you firstly enjoy the nature. You enjoy the nature after you cleaned up the area. And you also, it's always so fun to find different stuff that you think, how would this get here? And honestly, that sense of community, that sense of, doing something well for the environment, for a future, it kind of does make the people to care about the environment. Um, One experience that kind of truly imprinted in my mind. We were doing this eco village program in an acknowledged village. It's a fire village in Armenia. It didn't have any rubbish bins, so we had to so the area was very polluted. People just didn't have a place to put their litter in, and we did a small seminar in the school of the village, and we started doing the cleanup. And we started it with 20 people, and then I saw that people started joining us, very random people. And then at the very end, there was approximately 100 of us. And I remember this might be kind of cultural shock for some people, but makes I'm letting you know that this is okay in Armenia. I remember one of the parents of one of the kids. They kept calling the kid home, like for the kid to go home and not cleaning up the area. And the kid answered that, "Hey mom, I'm cleaning my home country in my town. This is so important for me, and I'm not gonna come back home." And it was kind of it was kind of, oh, okay. Yeah. But it was kind of, it is very rewarding to hear that, because, previously I'm very sure that the kid has never seen anything like that. And the area was actually so polluted. But after that, really everybody in the village started enjoying the area so much more. And then after that, a few days later, we instilled the trash bin. So I'm hopeful to go back to that village very soon, in a few weeks. And hopefully there will be no more pollution.
Thank you for that, Hadache. That's actually an awesome story. I love that. And then we got one last question from Brian Murphy on LinkedIn. She says, I want to get involved, but I don't know where to start. Well, perfect question. If you go to earthday.org/cleanup, you will find everything there is to know about the Great Global Cleanup. There's toolkits, there's the map. Feel free to take a look at the map, find a cleanup near you this Earth Day. We are trying to make the map as accessible as possible at all corners of the world. So take a look there and find a cleanup near you, or start a cleanup yourself. Harach, Felix, thank you so much for taking the time. This was a really awesome conversation, and thank you so much for everyone who tuned in.
Thank you so much.
Yeah,
And
thanks so much.
adding to that, make sure that when you do a cleanup, maybe also use the time to film a bit to inspire others to do the same.
Yes, Harach, where can the people find you at?
I think Instagram. You can find my personal account on Instagram. Just, I guess, search Haraj. That's Haraj. But you can also find Makur's Instagram account. It is the Makur. It is the Armenian page, and there's also the global page called Makur Global. And the Makur is spelled like that. The Makur next to my name.
Awesome, Felix. Where can they find you at?
So as you see on my name, Felix Trainer Planet Matters. So that's the name of the TikTok and of the Instagram. If you have any more questions that I haven't covered, you can write me, of course, on Instagram. And what I wanted to say also in the end is thank you so much, earthday.org, for what you're doing. You're really doing great stuff, especially connecting people, your cleanup map. And yeah, I think, as you said, what's it all about is creating a community, also creating a community of organizations that work together. And you're really doing a fantastic job. And let's continue having a big impact and not worrying too much while doing that.
Awesome. Thank you for that, Felix. Thank you guys both.